All right, we're a couple of minutes past the top of the hour and the camera's rolling. So let's go ahead and get started. Thanks to everyone that's with us so far. I know that we'll have more people coming in. Thanks very much for being a part of this 11th, already 11 episodes of the Divi Community Q&A Sessions. Big shout out to Chatura from Divi Theme Tutorials for getting all of this started. He's a really busy man with a lot of projects, and this was his idea originally, and it's become a pretty good success. Especially, we want to welcome Jamie Hill and Chelsea Tompkins of iNovate Marketing from the state of Wisconsin in the United States. Hey guys.
Hey.
Hello.
iNovate offers website design, SEO, business listing management, and content marketing services. And during the conversation, I'll post links to their Facebook group and their website. It's pretty neat that we're able to continue to find these really awesome people that are willing to let us take up their time and be interviewed so that you can ask questions and get some insights.
We appreciate you asking us to come on.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm always willing to make time to answer questions.
Cool. Yeah, you sound a lot better now, Chelsea. That's awesome. We'll keep an eye on your questions, everyone that's joining us. But in the meantime, all right, Jamie, you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Without getting into your background yet, what are you doing right at this moment? I mean, as far as work, obviously not chatting on Discord, but
Well, we have a large client rebuild that's going on at this moment for one of our larger clients, and then I have another client that just signed up with us that's going to be a 3-site rebuild plus all of their sub clients for a photo booth. They manufacture photo booths and sell them, and so we're doing their sites as well as getting ready to start doing the sites for his clients. So that's going to be exciting.
yeah, sounds like a big project.
That's kind of what's in the pipeline. And then, of course, all of our standard care packages that we run on a monthly basis for our current clients that we have, which Chelsea gets to deal with most of that stuff.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and I was going to ask Chelsea next. Are you working on something separate as well? I know you and Jamie don't always work on the exact same thing as part of the business, but what do you got going on besides that?
Well, I've got a pretty big website redesign for a gym going on, but most of my time is, like Jamie said, I'm dealing with the clients, our current clients, maintaining their websites, making changes, soothing their panic when their website inevitably crashes or someone tries to hack it.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's always something going on with that, no matter what
But
you do.
yeah, but in addition to that, I have a lot of my time is spent going back to school because I'm always about learning new skills and improving the ones I have. So
Yeah, you were taking some coding classes, right?
yeah, and they kind of kicked my butt a little bit.
That's, it gets better with experience. I promise you.
Yeah, I've even with just the 1 or 2 classes I've taken, I've noticed my ability to tweak and make subtle changes in my website designs has vastly improved. So,
Nice. Very cool. So you recommend learning a little bit about PHP and JavaScript in order to make your WordPress websites a little better, huh?
oh, absolutely. Anyone who has the time or the patience to learn even the basics about additional coding languages, it really does make a difference. There are things that used to take me a couple of hours that I can do in a couple of minutes now, and
Wow.
things I used to have to ask people to do for me, that I
Right?
can do now. So if you've got the time to learn something new, you'll definitely add value to your services for your clients.
And that means you don't have to pay someone else to do it.
Exactly, which means higher ROI. So
There you go. It's a win-win if you have the time and the initiative.
exactly.
All right. That's
It,
cool.
it makes it worth for our clients too. We can take it from standard themes and more make it fit the client better than we were able to before she started working heavier with the coding and whatnot, which again, that ties in with the higher ROIs. It makes us become more wanted by other companies that see our websites that are built and created out there. So it all comes around and ties in extremely nice.
Okay. So you start to get away from the template looking websites and into something that's truly custom.
Yeah, I mean, 90% of what Chelsea builds is full out custom sites. She does very little theme work. There's a few of our clients that are just adamant about a particular theme, but 90% of what she builds is straight up custom Divi. Okay. So it definitely was worth her going back to school for.
Nice. Good. Okay. Here's an interesting question just to get into a little more background. Were each of you into WordPress before iNovate came along, or was it the other way around? Was iNovate there and then you got into WordPress? How did that all work out?
Yeah, actually, iNovate was started by a gentleman, Kurt Music. He started it almost 10 years ago. And then he really got heavy into it about 5 years ago, where it became a full-time job for him. So he built a website for me and my wife on another business that we own, and after that we became friends, and I started to work for him as the manager of the business, and then he got to the point where he was ready to sell it, so we purchased it, and that's how I got into the WordPress. Chelsea got into it because I was into it, and she took it and ran with it on the WordPress aspect, and I'll let her tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, 2 years ago, I'd never even touched a WordPress website, and now I'm building sites left and right. So
Great. What were you using before WordPress?
before, most of what I had done was in school, not actual projects for real live clients.
Okay.
And I had messed around with a little bit of Dreamweaver, but I remember going all the way back and building things out of straight HTML, nothing else.
Yeah, right, with like programmer's notepad or something like that.
Exactly. And I cringe when I think about how long some of that takes.
Well, we did talk about some of the services that iNovate provides. I think what we'd like to do is talk about each one of those categories, what got you into it, what you've learned, and then see what comes up in the form of conversation and questions from the audience so that you can give us all some good advice.
Sure. Well, iNovate started off as a web design company. That's what Kurt originally designed and built it for, and he worked WordPress. He likes Divi, and so when we purchased it, we had just started playing with it. We've gotten really heavy into doing 95% of our builds are on a Divi theme or straight Divi for Chelsea to build it, and that is our bread and butter. The websites that we do, they're generally 10 to 15 page websites, and that's kind of where our bread and butter comes in. I have to admit a little bit, I am not the most knowledgeable on WordPress. That's where I rely a lot on Chelsea for, because of the fact that our skill set allowed her to focus on that and allowed me to focus on other parts of the business that I needed. So I'll let her explain a little bit more about what all goes into the web design for what we do.
So yeah, as Jamie said, this company was originally built for web design, and that is a lot of what we do. I would say that we only have maybe 1 or 2 clients that we do other services for them, and we didn't build their website or redesign a website for them. And I would say, yeah, 95 probably at least % is built on Divi. That's mostly my quote unquote fault, because I just love it. It's so versatile, and I love it because all of the stuff that takes a lot of time that's really basic is already built into there for you. And I've heard people say before that Divi's so good that someone who has no idea what they're doing with web design could make a good website. And it's true, you could. But you still need to hire a designer to have a great website, because there are definitely things that the standard Divi features don't allow you to do natively. And that's where my passion is finding those little quirks to take a website to the next step by doing something fun and interesting that you could never achieve without knowledge of how those things work on the back end. But I love that Divi works so seamlessly with so many different big name plugins out there, such as WooCommerce and a lot of the really big ones, Gravity Forms, Contact Form 7. They all play very nice with Divi, and some of the sites that aren't Divi sites that we have don't play very nice with some of those plugins. At least not to my opinion.
Right.
But some of the new features they've come out with, I really like that now I can export custom layouts and settings I've done on one website and easily transport them to another one, because again, Divi makes my ability to build fully custom sites for a client in basically the time frame you'd normally give someone a cookie cutter template site in. And I love that. I love being.
Kate, I think we lost you there, Chelsea.
Yep, she cut out. But yeah, to go on more of what getting into the Divi, and with a lot of the new updates that are coming out, the beta programs we've been able to get on and work with has really allowed us to take from just a standard WordPress that in Wisconsin, less than 2 hours away, there's another 100 WordPress designers out there, and really allow us to stand apart from them. And that's one of the reasons Divi is because of that. We do offer other services that they don't offer, but when it comes to the web design part, that allows us to stand out. It's not another cookie cutter website, even if it is one of the 5% that she takes a theme for, or any of the other designers we have on staff takes a theme for, and then they customize it a little bit, takes it from that cookie cutter to where we want it to be, and really get the client to feel like it's really their site, not just another mass-produced site, because nobody really likes a lot of mass-produced items. Especially when it comes to business, they really like to hear, this is my site. I don't have nobody else out there has a site like mine. So that's kind of where we're at with that art.
Okay, so in a nutshell, Divi gives you an edge over people that are not using Divi, so that you can stand out more.
I think so. Yep, I would definitely agree with that statement.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Okay. All right, Jamie, why don't you talk a little bit about something that everybody is interested in hearing about, and that's search engine optimization. Can you give us, a basic overview of what every site should include as far as SEO?
I think from the site build, I think you definitely, we use Yoast almost exclusively on every single site. The free plugin is amazing. It really lays out what you need to do for your website. And if you don't know a lot of SEO, or don't really know how to get your site SEO ready out of the box, using that Yoast plugin is just literally a guideline. It'll tell you keywords, if your site has enough keywords on it, if it's, if your pictures have the correct alt tags in there, and it scores you from a red dot to a green dot, and green being where you want to be at. So all of our websites start off with that, and that from starting with that angle and that point, it really allows us, when we do move those clients from a web design client to an online marketing client, an SEO client, that we're already ahead of where a lot of companies are. We get a lot of companies that come to us for marketing, and one of the reasons we rebuild their website is because it's not SEO ready, and it just is more cost effective. So I think anybody that's building a website, regardless if you actually run SEO or not, you should really definitely put Yoast on your client's website and use that as a starting point. And then after that, search engine optimization is kind of like coding. It's a very time consuming aspect that it takes a lot of time to keep up with what Google's constantly changing. I mean, they just came out with an update 2 months ago. They're getting ready to release a new update, and it has to do with pop-ups. I don't know some people's feelings on pop-ups. Some people love them, some people hate them. But it's like building. We always equate SEO to building a house. Anybody could go out there and build a house. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be well built, but anybody can do it. There's only certain people that can go out there and do it well and make it so your clients aren't going to get hurt off of SEO that's not run correctly. So 3 years ago, Kurt he went to school for marketing, and then he really got into the SEO. He found that's where his passion was. And once I purchased it from him, he's been working with me a lot on SEO. So my level of understanding on SEO and the SEO compliance rules out there has grown exponentially because of that. And SEO, like I said, it's a beast. If you don't know what you're doing, you can ruin a client's site and ruin their rankings and get them blacklisted off of Google, and none of that's any good.
Yeah.
So, and again, that goes with the algorithms. I mean, years ago, it used to be keywords, and people would just fill up a website with keywords, and then it went to backlinks, keywords with backlinks, and just straight backlinks, and then back again to just keywords on your website. Now it's a combination of the correct backlinks to your website, the correct social signals going to your website, the correct keywords that are actually on your website that are relevant to the website. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
They got to be relevant to what the post is on, and there's some other little tips and tricks, but those are the main things you really got to watch out for. And you got to make sure when you go buy those backlinks, you're buying them from a good company, because you have the white hat, the black hat, and gray hat, and it's impossible to stay 100% white hat, but you don't want to go to the black hat at all. So
right,
that's kind of the thing about that. And like I said, that's a beast. I mean, we could talk an hour and a half just on SEO alone, but I'll be happy to answer any other questions. But like I said, Google has this big thing coming out. I posted it on our Facebook page, and if you guys use a lot of pop-ups, I would recommend checking into it, because they're going to start dinging websites for having mobile pop-ups if it covers the content, and it's difficult for the client or visitor to exit out of that pop-up. And they say by mid 2017, even pop-ups on desktops are gonna start dinging against your SEO. So,
oh my goodness,
yeah, it might be something to watch out for.
Yeah, I read that article about the mobile pop-ups, and I would tend to agree with that, especially if you can't get any content, or your visit is interrupted before you can even start reading. Those are the kind of things that I totally agree with, that maybe we shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But you mentioned earlier a comment about having alt tags for your images.
Yes.
Why is that important?
Well, what's really nice about that is when robots are crawling your website coming up from Google, one of the things they look at is relevant information. They can't look at that photo and say, okay, so say you're doing a DJ site, and they can't look at that photo and say, okay, that is a DJ uplight, which an uplight is a light that sits on the floor and lights up the wall. The robots can't differentiate between that. So if you're building a page about DJ uplights, when you start doing your alt tags and your keywords, you have to tag that picture correctly. Otherwise, it does you absolutely no good for SEO value. I mean, it won't hurt you, but it doesn't help you. So when you in WordPress, when you're uploading your photo, it's got the title and the caption and then the alt text. And that alt text is really where you got to pay attention to what you put in there and make sure it's relevant to the keyword that is on your website. And again, that's where Yoast comes in really handy, because it will tell you place your keyword in there, and it will tell you have X amount of keywords in your post. You also have it in your photo, you're good to go. And if you don't, it'll tell you you need to make sure that your photos are tagged correctly. And you don't want multiple tags on multiple pages. So you don't want to use that alt tag for DJ uplighting on 3 other pages. That will hurt you. So if you can, like I said, it's more on getting Google's robots to be able to differentiate what is what and what this photo actually is. Because like I said, they can't see the photo. So it goes all in with the coding that you do with it. Excuse me.
Okay, so having the alt tag on the image basically confirms that the image is about what the post is about, and it should be relevant to that content.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. Okay, the next thing that we have here is business listings management. Now that's something that I don't know very much at all about. Can you talk a little bit about what that actually is and what kind of a benefit to the business it provides?
Yeah, it actually, business listing management actually has a twofold benefit. Benefit number one, it helps your local SEO. So for most companies that most of your clients that you're gonna be dealing with, I would say 60% of them are locally based. They don't go out more than a 60 to 70 mile radius. So one of the big things that we use into our local SEO is making sure that all their business listings are correct. Facebook, Yelp, Foursquare, wherever they're listed that has nothing to do with Google. Well, let me rephrase that. Wherever they're listed that has nothing to do with Google's search engine, so Google Plus as well. You want to make sure all the addresses are the same, all the phone numbers are the same, any relevant information on there is the same. When we do our business listing management, we check the reviews, because just like content that's repeated in multiple areas on multiple websites will ding all the websites having multiple reviews counts as having multiple content. So we make sure that the reviews are different for any business that allows reviews on there. And that's really what it is. That's how you hype up your local SEO, by getting all of that in line, because it's easier to rank for that map pack than it is to get your site to number 1, especially for new businesses that don't spend a lot of money on SEO or don't have that kind of budget to really ramp up their SEO marketing budget. So there's different companies out there that offer it that you can subcontract out to. I don't have the names in front of me. I can get them to Terry and he can post the links, but they'll go through and help you do it, make sure, because if you do it yourself, it's very time consuming. Because we cover 75 different local listings. There's some companies out there that go all the way up to a couple hundred local listings. So
wow.
It can be very time consuming. So most companies, pretty much every company, unless they're a multi-billion-dollar company, subcontract out to some of the, I think there's 5 or 6 companies out there that actually offer just that service. They don't offer anything else. And what's beautiful about subcontracting out to them, I'm a big fan of keeping things in-house, but a lot of times with those, you get a dashboard, you change information one time, and it changes all the way across the board for every single listing that you have. And then the second prong of that is it helps your client, it helps their visitors and their potential clients find them. Again, if you have a different phone number on your website than your Google Plus, which is different than your Facebook, which is different from your Angie's listing, which is different from your Yelp, you're going to lose clients, because if the incorrect number is in Yelp, people are going to try calling it. No number, it's disconnected. They're going to think the business is now out of business, and there's lost clients. So it's really, we do a lot of our clients have this as ongoing, but we also get a lot of one-offs. People that they know their listings need to be changed. They, for whatever reason, got a phone number, got a new number or a new address, and they don't have the time to go through every business listing they're on. So you can use it in both your SEO and as a one-off type thing, which is what, in my personal opinion, is what makes it so powerful for that aspect. And if you're doing a lot of local SEO, having that local listing management in there definitely helps out.
That's pretty amazing, actually. So you're saying it's really critical for a business to make sure that all of their listings on all the local directories and those kinds of things, all the information is correct, and that duplicate reviews count as duplicate content.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yep, you got that right on the nail with that. It is so needed to make sure that you guys have your clients double checking this. Oh, and the one other big thing about the business local management or the business listings management that we've found too is a lot of our clients, I'm sure you guys have clients like it too, they work exclusively from their house, so they have a PO box. Any clients that we get like that, we send them to the UPS store so they can actually get still a PO box, but the UPS store gives them an address, gives them a street address with a suite on it. So
Wow.
that too. Oh yeah. And there's, think of it as a high-rise building in Chicago. You could have 10,000 companies in one of the high-rise buildings up there, and I mean most of the UPS stores only have like 300, I think, is their max. But as far as Google's concerned, you have an actual street address, not a PO box, because PO boxes can hurt you. So again, if you have someone with the PO boxes on their business management, on their business listings, and they need to change it over to a street address, that's another way that this particular system is powerful for that, so they don't have to manually change everything over and over again.
Yeah, that is really cool. I can't wait to talk about this. Learned a lot there. That's awesome. Well, Chelsea, are you back with us?
I am. I've been back for a while, but I didn't want to interrupt Jamie. So sorry
so
about
fascinating.
getting disconnected.
No, that's okay. that happens quite often, actually. Well, do you have anything to add to that, or is that really that's Jamie's cup of tea there?
That's Jamie's cup of tea. If I never have to look at another Yelp listing in my life, I'll be just fine.
So you feel like most other people probably do, just let somebody else do it.
Pretty much. Well, when Jamie first bought iNovate from Kirk, we kind of all juggled a little bit of everything for a while. So I got my taste of SEO. I got my taste of project management. I got my taste of finance. And I am very happy to be sitting pretty in web design right now.
There you go. All right.
There you go.
Okay, let's who wants to pick up the topic of content marketing? We've kind of I think some of these overlap just in small areas, but can you expand a little bit on the content marketing aspect?
Well, I know one of the things when it comes to content specifically for websites, Jamie and I butt heads a little bit because I always like to have content before I start designing. And Jamie always wants me to design while the content writers or while the client's getting me content. And I'm like, to me, how content fits inside your design, whether you're talking about a flyer or a business card or a website or anything that you're designing, how the content fits within that is, at least to me, the biggest part of what I think about when I'm going to design something is how much content do I have? Is it mostly text? Is it mostly pictures? What am I working with? And Jamie always likes to tell me, "Oh, just throw some lorem ipsum in there." And I'm like, "You don't understand. That's not how it works." Um,
Well, Jamie, sorry, but I side with Chelsea on this one. I have a hard time making a good layout unless I know exactly what the content is going to be, for the most part. But anyway,
Yeah,
some people can work with that. I'm just not. I'm not even really a what I would call a designer anyway. So I need all the help I can get.
right. And that's where one of the downfalls of me not being as versed in site building as Teresa, Kurt, Chelsea, the as they is there are things I look at it in a completely. I look at it more as a marketing opportunity for me to get them to buy content from us, because 9 times out of 10 the content that comes with their old site is just horrendous.
Yeah.
But also trying to keep it on their timetable of what we discuss with them. No, with that being said, we have revamped how we do things and how we get things from the clients. And per Chelsea's request, we don't actually start the site build until the content is in place. We will start without photos and we'll put placeholders in for those. But as far as the
Yeah.
Word content goes, I've kind of, allowed that to kind of fall to the wayside and really just start getting it in there. Because again, as I watch more and more of these web designs get built, I see the struggle between building it with the old content, knowing that new content's coming in, but not knowing, is that content going to be longer? Is it going to be a different tone to it? Which tone of your content really dictates how the website looks, because we're not building websites for our clients. We're building websites for their clients.
Yeah.
So the content that if they are getting new content, that really is going to carry a tone on how the website is built out. So yeah, I've kind of acquiesced to that request, and now we don't start a build until we get the full content.
what Jamie's saying about building content for your clients, not I think is really important, but it's a concept that sometimes I think the client doesn't understand, because I have clients tell me all the time, well, I want it this way, I want it that way, I want it to look like this, and you do it for them because you make the client happy, right? And then they can't understand why no one visits and stays on their website. And it's like, well, because it's not readable, it's not user friendly. If you'd done what I told you to do in the first place, we'd be all sitting happy having a drink together right now.
I totally agree with that. I was going to mention that also. It seems like so many of us struggle with clients that have an idea in mind of what they want it to look like, but they hire us to design a site for what their customers and their viewers want it to look like.
Yeah, my favorite client is the one that has absolutely no preconceptions of what they want. The ones that think they know what they want tend to be the more difficult ones in my experience.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else about content marketing? Is that just pretty much?
I think it ties in with everything else.
It really does, because it ties in with web design. It definitely ties in with the search engine optimization, because it goes back to the keywords and making sure everything is relevant to what that particular page is talking about and the overall theme of the website. I think the only thing it doesn't really tie much with is the business listing management, unless we're writing bios for the clients to put on their particular business listing, like Angie's List or Yoast. We do that a lot. Write them up 350 to 500 word bio for them to place on there. But really, if you don't have good content, you're not going to really have a nice, solid SEO campaign. And obviously you can have the prettiest website in the world, but again, if you don't have good content to make the visitors stay on that website, it doesn't matter. So I look at it as a restaurant. The restaurant could be the most gorgeous restaurant out there, but if the food sucks, nobody's staying, nobody's coming back. So, content is very important when it comes to the web design and the SEO. So, again, that's where some of that argument comes in with the clients. It's, well, the content's been working for me, and it's been working, but you want us to take it to the next level. This is what you need to take it to the next level. Unfortunately, it is not free. It costs money and all that. But I think more and more clients are starting to understand that they have to have the best content for their website. Otherwise, it's a waste of money. And we turn clients away for that. They refuse to change their content, and it's just, we know it's going to be a failed project from the start. So we have chosen not to work with a couple of clients due to that reasoning. So I think that has to be made per whoever's built, the company or the freelancers that building a website. But as far as we go, I'd rather not put my name on something that's not going to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. So, pick a restaurant, for example. It's the only Mexican food restaurant in town. Local SEO, they might do okay, even if they have bad content, but they don't want to change their content when a couple of new Mexican restaurants open up in town. Well, it used to work just fine. Well, it's not working now because you have greater competition, and you can always expect that.
Correct.
Awesome. Okay. Sounds like you have a good handle on this next topic. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. One of the sites that I've kind of poked into with you guys is called Sweetbriar Designs. You've been working on that one for a while, and it's involved a lot of success, but also, I guess, a lot of learning experiences. Let's talk a little bit about what you've come up with in regards to handling very large projects and the importance of having a rock-solid contract to go along with your client.
Well, this particular client is the exact reason why I $800 on having new contracts written up. We got in. Well, the previous owner took it on. The original quote went out, and it didn't sound as bad, but it was an e-commerce site, and anybody that's ever built e-commerce knows that unless it's like a 10 product site, you're always going to have issues. And then there was a bunch of custom stuff she wanted done. So from the get-go, the quote was handled wrong, the contract was handled wrong, and which created a lot of work on us before I purchased the company. Both me and Chelsea, and then after I purchased the company, the continued work that we've done. We're in almost 2 years on this build, and she just allowed it to go live in April, and it's still not 100% done. So it's that particular, and I'll let Chelsea get into the more specifics, but that particular build is a combination of a client that's impossible to get hold of. And when you do get hold of them, impossible to get them nailed down on subjects that need to be fixed and changed on the website, mishandled contracts and quotes, and improper outsourcing to other companies. And I actually wrote a very long blog about outsourcing to overseas versus in the area you work, albeit Australia, Europe, the States, wherever, and knowing who you're outsourcing to. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some amazing out there that do amazing work. Just knowing that the cheapest is not always the best, and we tell that to our clients all the time. Yet, I think as company owners, we fall into the same thing. Well, this particular freelancer or this particular subcontractor is $800 cheaper than this other one, so we're going to go with this other one because they're cheaper. And we tell our clients cheaper is not better, but we fall into that same thing. And Chelsea really has, she's been working on it for a year and some change, so she really has the specifics on where a lot of our learning curves came from on that aspect too.
Yeah. I think the biggest lesson that I've taken and Jamie's taken away from Sweetbriar Designs has definitely got to be with rock solid contracts, and more specifically, your rock solid contracts being specific. Jamie said that when this contract originally went out, we didn't own the company, and the first contract made it seem like a fairly basic, run of the mill with slight customization e-commerce site. By the time it came to Jamie and I, what was originally on paper a small blurb about a phone customizer had turned into the largest example of scope creep I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, I was going to mention scope creep. Yeah.
Scope creep will kill you. But when we got around to talking with the client and renegotiating the contract, that tiny little paragraph had turned into, I think, 4.5 or 5 pages of explicitly what that phone customizer was expected to do. Because by the time we got to renegotiation of the contract, the scope had gotten so large and so complicated that it actually took 4.5, almost 5 pages to nail down what was expected and what wasn't. And I think that's the biggest lesson. If you take on a project, especially a project where you think that you're going to have to do something custom or modify an existing tool, you might want to nail down a 4 or a 5 page explanation of exactly what that part of the project is going to entail, because the client sometimes is not going to tell you everything they need up front. I remember when I first got handed this project, she had 10 patterns to be in this customizer. Well, she doesn't have just 10 patterns. She has 34 patterns. But she only gave us 10 to start with because she figured you could always add more patterns later. Well, yeah, but you can only do that if you anticipate the need to add more patterns later. And without that upfront knowledge, the first developer started building something that was not going to ever be easy to add new patterns to.
Okay. So the design was locked into having just 10 patterns because there was no indication that there could be more.
And that's where the misquote came in, because the website was already pre-built. She already had a live active website. She didn't have a customizer on it, but she had a live active website. So there was the knowledge that there was more than just 10 patterns that were going in and the 10 colors and things like that. It was just more, and from the start, that might have all been what she was expecting to come in. The biggest problem we ran into with that scope creep was that when milestones were missed, things got promised to make up for those missed milestones. And then by the time 8 months went by and we purchased the company and the client came with it, it was, well, I was told we're going to get XYZ. We talked to the previous salesperson / owner, and well, I don't ever remember saying that. And it was a lot of back and forth, and it was just like, well, was it actually said or wasn't it said? It's not in the contract. But, and like Chelsea said, that script cope will kill you. So list everything you're going to do and put a limit on it. Like Chelsea, how many variation of products does she have that you and I had to go through and upload?
I uploaded over 1,200 individual products and variations. And that's not counting color and pattern variations.
Right.
That's only counting device device variations and type of protective case variations, because those are the only variations that have price changes. So those are and everything else is done within the variable system. But and that's the other thing too. We originally, our contract stated that I only had to upload 750 products. Well, I obviously uploaded almost twice that many, because my attempts to teach the client how to upload her own products were taking me longer than uploading the products themselves.
Yeah, yeah. And then, oh, go ahead.
Well, and that's the other thing too. I think with a big project like this, I think going into it, the client kind of figured that she would be able to maintain it the way she had maintained her previous site. But WordPress is a lot more powerful than the platform she was using before, and it can be very simplistic in some ways. But you start getting into these complicated e-commerce sites with hundreds of variations, and it's not as intuitive as you'd think it is. Yeah. And so now we're kind of stuck in this limbo where the client's kind of half able to make changes herself and half not. And I think I've probably done screencasts with her on everything she wants to be able to do 4 or 5 times. And she's still struggling with it a little bit, because we gave her so many new features that she thought she wanted. And now the learning curve, and she is, she's not a 20-something, you know, she's been in the business for a long time. She knows her business well. But she is definitely, her computer learning curve is a little bit, trying to find a delicate word for this.
Really,
she's not tech savvy. Yeah.
Not tech savvy.
You know, and again, this also comes into that learning aspect of learning that you can't always give the client what they want. They may think they want a customizer on their website, but the reality of the situation is she wants to maintain her website and not pay us a monthly fee for uploads and all that. So the reality of the situation actually is that customizer doesn't work out for her. And knowing that she will never be able, and I think that's the next problem we're going to run into is we're going to turn the site over to her and she'll be unhappy because she can't care for it the way she wants. So, I mean, there's so many things that went wrong with this build. Chelsea and I, we were tracking our time, and once we hit about 350 hours, we just stopped tracking our time. It just wasn't worth it. And that was after we bought the company. That's not including the probably 150, 200 hours I put on there before we purchased the company as a project manager for this particular build. So it was just a big mess, and the contract did nothing to cover our butts. So, you know, it's just, we have lost so much money. In one way, it's great because it's a good learning experience for us. We now know that I will probably never take another e-commerce build like that. I don't care how much they pay. But, you know, it also taught us on this particular business requires different quotes and different contracts than any other business I've owned, and I've owned a few. But when it comes to web development, it's its own beast, and you need to treat it like that. So I think it also had some definite benefits for the learning experience that we got off of it, at least in my opinion.
I feel like I learned a lot. Sweetbriar is constantly teaching me things about how to do things better on other sites. But I think the big thing is that don't, a lot of people would get excited if you're a small little independent, you've only got 1 or 2 people working with you, and this big client shows up and they want you and they're willing to put the money out for it. It's still kind of a cautionary tale of don't bite off more than you can chew, because the original owner, the original salesperson on this contract, thought it had a developer who said, yeah, I can do that. Well, the developer couldn't do what the client wanted. And we went through what, 2 or 3 other developers, Jamie?
3 other developers besides the first one that started. So 4 total.
We finally got a reasonably well working product customizer that is hitting most of the points that the client wants. The problem is that the cost for her to upkeep it on a monthly basis is going to be astronomical. She's never going to be able to afford it. And it's 100% pure code. I mean, we had to start from scratch. We had to throw away everything else the other developers did, build everything from the ground up. And she's never going to be able to maintain it. So like Jamie was saying, she thought she wanted a customizer, but when 2 years later, the reality is she probably really doesn't want it. It's never going to do for her what she wants. And if we'd been smarter and wiser in the beginning, we could have told her that. And now we know, but like Jamie said, it comes at a pretty big cost financially for us, that learning experience.
Right.
So.
Wow. So, yeah, I'm working on a proposal right now with another designer. It's 13 pages. Of course, there's a title page, but there's 3, 5, 7 pages alone just on the scope. And all this is it's a very simple e-commerce site, and they'll only have maybe 10 products within the next few months. No customization or anything. But the proposal, your contract, all of that does need to be very, very explicit, including the cost of extra time spent that's outside of scope and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, and the other thing we really learned with this, you have to stick to what you agree on. If you miss a milestone, pay a penalty, pay money up for a penalty. Don't give them something for free, because it doesn't matter. And once you start giving somebody something for free, regardless if they intentionally mean to or not, they start to come to expect it. So
yeah, you're setting a precedent that you don't want to set.
Yeah. So I would much rather pay a small penalty for being late, which is written into our contracts, for being late, than giving them XYZ, because they're not going to come back to me and ask for more money. And they can't hold up our milestones just to try to get more money, because if they don't sign off on a certain time frame, then they have to pay me a penalty. So to us, that is working better with our clients than in the back of our mind. Sorry about that. In the back of our mind, saying, okay, well, if we're late, we can just give them a free, a free extra 3 pages or whatever, because those pages cost money. They don't necessarily cost you money out of your pocket, but they cost you time, which costs you money, which comes off your ROI. And everything revolves around that. I hate to say everything revolves around money, but in business, everything has to revolve around that ROI. If you're not making money, you're not going to have a business.
Right. So you're saying you should not barter services for penalties. It should always be a dollar amount.
I think so, because how are you going to get something from the client if they hold up the process? They're not going to give you something for free. So, and that penalty, these contracts, they're not, some of it is to protect the clients. Don't get me wrong on that, but most of the time, these contracts, the bulk of these contracts, are to protect your company. So, you're protecting the client by saying, okay, if we're late on a milestone and it's our fault, and there was no way that we could, whatever, and we're going to pay you XYZ depending, but you have to have something there to make it to where the clients aren't holding up your process either, like with the content or with whatever, because the longer a website build is dragged out, the less attention you can pay to another client. And, we had to turn away work when we were working on Sweetbriar because Chelsea and I could not focus attention on those clients that needed it. And that lost us probably another $30,000 worth of revenue this year.
Oh.
And that's where we were like, okay, we need to start putting a penalty in there for both parties. And if they're going to be late, they're going to pay a penalty too. It's, they're paying an hour. We charge them an hourly rate. So, we don't just hit them with some crazy number, but if it's held up because of them, they pay us for it. And we put them to the back of the burner. On top of that, I have no problems putting a website build on hold because they're not giving us what we need. And then when they finally do, they have to wait their turn if we have other things in the pipeline.
Yeah, I think we've got a client that signed a contract, and I've been waiting for approximately 3 months to receive content from him, and he still hasn't given it to me. And I just have this gut feeling. I know that the day he shows up with content, I'm going to have no room on my agenda for him. And he's going to have to go to the back burner. And I don't think he's going to be happy because he's going to be like, well, I should have been first in line. And I'm going to have to tell him you were first in line 3 months ago.
But he's paying a penalty. He's paying $100 a month for that website that is not being built.
Okay.
So, he can wait all day long if he wants. But he's paying that penalty, and he knows that he's going to be in our contract. It states that he will be put in the pipeline just like he was a brand new client. So if we got 10 builds going on, he's going to be number 11.
Well, that makes perfect sense to me.
Because it's not fair to any of the clients we bring on after him that get their content to me right away,
Right. Exactly.
And that is something we learned from Sweetbriar, that you give the clients clear timelines of when their content needs to come in, and that if you give them a review period, they have to have a very clear review period of when they have to give you feedback. Because otherwise, you have got clients that they get the email, they look at it, they tell you like one thing's wrong with it, and then 3 weeks later, they still haven't cleared the site to go live. And when you ask them why, they're like, oh, well, here's this list of 10,000 other things that's wrong or that I don't like after I've looked at it for 3 weeks. And
oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and that's another part of where that expensive contract really, really came in handy because, like, now, all of our web builds are 4, 6, 8, however many weeks, and they get one milestone review a week, which is given to them on Friday at the end of the business day. They have until Monday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time to get it back to me. I don't care if they're in Europe. I don't care if they're in West Coast, East Coast. They have 10 a.m. Central Standard Time to get the reviews back to me that they want changed. And then we move to the next process, the next part of the website build. We call them stages, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, however many weeks it is. And if they come back on week 4 and want something fixed that was on week 1, we won't fix it. They have to pay Chelsea's hour. I can't talk. They have to pay her rate to have her go back and fix it. Is it easy for us to fix? Sure. But again, it stops people from walking all over you as a client. And you have to stop and think. You have to say, are those the clients I want? The clients that say, well, I don't like that contract, so I'm not going to go with you. You really have to ask yourself, are those the clients you want? Or do you want the clients that are going to follow along with your timeline so you can build them a website? It's just like a mechanic. You don't go to your mechanic and tell your mechanic, well, 8 weeks ago I came in and I changed and I told you to go with, the $30 brake pads. Now I want the $100 brake pads, and you're not going to charge me any more labor to re-put them back on.
Right. Yeah.
For us, it was a struggle, but we're now finally where we're making our clients treat us just like they would any of their other vendors that they use or whatever they use on their personal level.
And we've had a lot of success. Sorry, I can't talk either. Jamie used the house metaphor earlier in this discussion, and most things in design you can really take back to that when you're building a house. So if stage 1 of web design is like pouring the foundation, and stage 2 is framing the walls, and stage 3 is calling in the plumber and the electrician, you know, you can use that house metaphor, which is something that 99% of people are going to understand and relate to very, very well. And you say, hey, if you had a problem in week 1 when I was pouring the foundation, you should have told me, because now I have to rip out wires, I have to reframe a couple of walls, and there's a cost associated with that. And if you can put it in terms like that are simple and easy to relate to, it's like something clicks for the client. They're like, oh yeah, I get that. If you have to re-drywall an entire room in my house, quote unquote, because I forgot to tell you that I needed speakers wired in this room for surround sound, I get that, why that costs me more money. And so many people, I think, don't understand web design intimately, that you have to put it in terms that people can really relate to. And that house metaphor seems to work really well for most clients.
And then it goes back to, if they don't agree to it, or they think that, they should be able to give you changes from week 1 and week 4, and so they're not going to sign your contract. Is that a client you want to work with? I mean, yes, you might lose $1,000 from working with that particular client, but think of all the headache that you have to go through after you sign that contract and work with them. You'll probably end up losing money than you will making money.
Yeah, and I fully believe that as someone in this web design industry, we have the right to choose who we want to work with, just like pretty much anyone else has the right to choose who they want to work with. And you should never be in a position that you're so desperate that you feel like you have to take any client, even the clients that are going to treat you poorly, because web designers and marketers, all the creative types in all of the multiple industries that work together in our field, we have to be valued. And I think one of the reasons we're not as valued as we should be is because a lot of us let bad clients walk all over us, because sometimes we feel like we need that client. And we've learned, Jamie and I, that you never need a client. There's always another one out there that's a better fit for you.
And when we say bad clients, we don't mean bad people, because 9 times out of 10, the clients that are demanding and all that, they're really people. They're just not someone we work with. So we actually now, when we get a request for more information, I have a worksheet that I'll share. I'll share with Terry, and he can link you guys to the Google Drive for it, the Google Doc. They have to apply to work with us. Awesome. And awesome. And it's great, because we get pretty much all the information we need just from that initial website worksheet, and they know what our budget is. Our minimum budget to start building websites, $4,000. It's on our worksheet, starting at $4,000 and up. And if they're coming to us with $1,000 website, they see that, they go somewhere else, which is fine, because again, we're not hungry and starving that we need to have that $1,000 client who's actually going to cost us more money than bringing on a $4,000 or $5,000 client. So,
wow, yeah, I think everybody's going to be looking forward to seeing something like that. I am.
And that came from WP Elevation. Roy over there, man, he's got some smart stuff going on. So,
okay. Yep. Old Troy Dean.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's pretty much the gist of what we learned with this. Like I said, I don't think I would, unless it's just some ridiculous amount of money, I don't think I would take on another e-commerce website. If I do, I would definitely have to make sure Chelsea's wanting to take it on, because this was such a headache and such a hassle to do. And there are other companies out there that sell extremely well at doing them, and that's not necessarily a field I want to get into. That's almost, to me, an e-commerce website is just kind of almost its own field, and just like with coding, just like with SEO, you need to know so many things that a standard WordPress designer would not need to know. So
And I can second that. I think that any e-commerce site where you are going to get above 50 to 100 products, or you're getting into a lot of products with a lot of variations, I am not a fan of pretty much any platform out there that will build a website for you or anything like that. But that being said, after inputting 1,200 different products and variations into WordPress, you know, she probably would have been better off going to one of those larger companies that, yeah, what they put out is kind of cookie cutter. And yeah, every new feature you want, they charge you, you know, what feels like an arm and a leg. But, you know, I feel like if you've got a big e-commerce store, you almost want to go to one of those places, or you have to really know how to use a computer, because otherwise you're going to pay me an arm and a leg for the rest of your life to maintain it for you, just like
yeah,
you're going to pay an arm and a leg to the other guy.
Right.
So,
and it also ties in with SEO, because those products and variations we put in there, me and my 12-year-old daughter had to go through and alt tag every single one of those products.
Wow.
So that's some more time that was not initially budgeted for on doing. And, you know, I paid my daughter like, which is way cheaper than I would anywhere else. But, you know, it just, that wasn't in the budget to do. And that's another thing you have to factor out, is especially any big build, but especially e-commerce, budget your numbers out correctly. That's, you know, you can never be 100%, but make sure you leave yourself a way out if need be. You know, if you need to back out of the project or add extra time in that contract.
Right.
and I want to make sure we highlight that pro tip that Jamie threw out there. Your children are great minions for menial mindless tasks.
That's why we had them, right?
You know that I say all the time that I cannot wait for my 4-year-old to turn 5 or 6 and really get those motor skills on the computer under control, so that I can start telling her that, here, I need to alt tag 4,000 photos. Have fun.
Give you 50 cents an hour.
That's right. I'll pay 50 cents, and they love it. They're happy with it, you know.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, I mean, but you know, all joking aside, though, my daughter, she's becoming quickly very knowledgeable about WordPress. Any things that we really need, like one of the websites we had, it's a membership website, and there was a theme issue that happened, and so she had to go through and enable some part in every single listing, and there was, I don't know, 300 listings or so, and she loves doing stuff like that, and she's knowledgeable and she knows how to do it, and this is something that she's very interested in doing. So, you know, we joke about minions, but you know, if you're in love with it, you know, and your kids are, let them have at it. I mean, obviously don't let them build a website at 12 years old, but
right,
you know, get them involved. She helped out a lot.
That sounds
know,
really
Jamie.
cool.
Athena has a better eye for design than you do.
That's true. That is very true.
Maybe you should let her design the website.
I'm not a very good designer.
Yeah, that's me too. Golly. Wow. Well, I want to tell you guys what, this has been a fascinating, we've gone over our hour, but I'm perfectly happy with that. I knew you guys would be helpful, but holy cow, this is gold. This whole over an hour has been just amazing. Like I said, I can't wait to get this typed up and presented and put up on YouTube. It's going to be awesome. This is going to be just amazing content for everybody to listen to. I can't thank y'all enough for sharing your wisdom and so many tips that I've learned about, and I know so many other people are going to learn about as well. It's just been awesome. I'm very well pleased with having you guys on with us.
Oh, well, I appreciate you having us.
Me too. And anytime, I'd be more than happy to talk about web design and anytime. It's what I love. So,
Okay. We might have to get one or both of you on as a co-host one of these weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Because obviously you know what you're talking about. You've done very well, and like I said, this has just been amazing.
thank you, Terry.
Yes, thank you.
All right.